It lit it up.
Hello everyone and welcome to today's episode of the Intuition Co podcast. My name is Georgia and I am your host today, joined with the beautiful Sarah Robson, who you may remember from episode 2. She is back and we are talking about something super important today that I'm so excited for you guys to hear and get this episode in your ears. Just take a breath. Just before we get into this episode, I do want to start off with a disclaimer and a trigger warning because we are talking about disordered eating, calories, weight, body image, and related topics to that today. So if any of those topics are triggering to you or may elicit some negative emotions, please do not listen to today's episode. We will have another episode for you in 2 weeks' time that I am so excited for you guys to hear. But today, as I just said, we are talking about all things body image, eating disorders, relationship with food. It is a very important one, especially for the ladies out there, also the men, but we're going to obviously be talking from a female perspective today, and I think this is a really important conversation to have and kind of one you don't really hear about that often.
Yeah, I feel like when it comes to mental health, it's very much like anxiety, depression, BPD, all that kind of thing, but I feel like body image and eating disorders and things like that are still very taboo.
Yeah.
And people are like, oh no, that's too far. Yeah. Don't talk about that.
Exactly. Yeah, and especially within girls, like I feel like it's something you don't really talk about with your friends, or it's a little bit harder to talk about. Like you feel more ashamed of having a negative relationship with food. So hopefully this conversation today is quite insightful for you guys and hopefully make some of you guys feel a little bit less alone. And I encourage you to reach out to your support networks. Of course, the Intuition Co podcasts, we are always here. And I'll also have Sarah's Instagram down below. If you want to reach out at all, please do. There are so many people around to help you.
So my story when it comes to my eating history. So it starts back in grade 2. Lots of people talk about defining moments and how, you know, one point in your life can just go on for so long. And this was mine. And it seems so little now, but it had set me up for years and years and years and years of just hard times, basically. So I was in grade 2 and I was having my lunch, and every Friday my mum used to put in like a little treat into our lunchbox. So it was like, you know, like one of those like Nutella things, and you get a little spatula and you just like eat the Nutella.
How nostalgic.
Right. I was like, now I want Nutella. It was one of those, and my mum had put it in my lunchbox. She left a cute little note, as she did, bless her cotton socks. And the girl I was sitting with, who was my friend at the time, she said, oh, you know, if you eat that, you'll get fat. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that one comment that, you know, if you eat that, you'll get fat, quite literally ruined me. Yeah.
I feel like that's such a common thing, even still, like with younger children and stuff. Like it's still such a misconception, and like, I don't know, like even working in schools and stuff, you still hear little things like that, like don't eat too many chips, you'll get fat, or like your thighs will get thick. And I'm like, these children are so young.
First of all, thick thighs save lives. We love a thick thigh. But yeah, basically from that point, I was the kid that had to eat their lunch with the teacher, because I started to just like not eat my lunch. I'd throw it in the bin before I got home from school, so mum would think that I ate it. Obviously, I'm in grade 2. How old are you then? Like 6, 7? Yeah. So I didn't outsmart the adults in my life. So mum did catch on, and I remember going to the doctors and getting blood tests, and, you know, I wasn't putting on any weight. But purely because I was terrified of eating food. I remember distinctly having this one consistent nightmare. It's so random, so please forgive me for that. But it was basically this horse. Don't understand where the horse comes from, and it would like go through my lunchbox and be like, no, no, no. Really? Like literally, I'd have this recurring nightmare, and it used to freak the shit out of me.
Do you know what? That is so freaking weird. I don't think I've ever told you this before.
You have nightmares about horses too?
Not horses, dogs. This is so weird. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I used to have a nightmare as a kid with dogs. and they were tempting me with ice cream. Trying to like lure me in because I had this weird, this is really weird, I had this weird like conception with like ice cream and dessert and sugar, and like from a young age, like you can't have dessert. And like even as a kid, like, you know, you like a little ice cream every now and then, and I used to just have like this constant nightmare if I didn't have dessert, or if I was deciphering whether to have dessert, and I was like, no, you'll get chubby or whatever. And then there'd be like dogs on my windowsill tempting me with ice cream.
What?
That's so weird.
That's so weird. I want to look into that now.
Yeah.
Is that a thing?
If you're listening to this and you've also had an animal
nightmare, childhood nightmare about food, please let us know.
Slide into the DMs because I'm quite interested to see if it's not just us. Or maybe it is just us.
Look, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest. But yeah, so basically I'd have that reoccurring nightmare. You know, my mum always fed us good food. Always, she wasn't an almond mum, but very much had a focus on healthy eating and teaching us about healthy eating. My grandparents also worked in like the supplement industry, so we were very much around healthy eating and weight loss and all of that kind of thing. And, you know, we were very much in the boom of like Biggest Loser, and I cannot even fathom that that show was a thing.
No,
I genuinely cannot fathom it.
And do you know how like wrong that would be in today's world? Like if they just came out with that now, like how many people would be like, absolutely not.
No
but
way.
That was such a normal thing. It was like, oh yeah, what are you watching tonight? Biggest Loser. Like, yeah, I love it.
And they put all these vulnerable people up on a stage wearing underwear and weighing them like
in front of everybody.
Oh my gosh. And we're all at home being like, oh, they didn't lose much weight this week. Like, fully playing along in this game. Like, it makes me sick.
Yeah, me too.
It makes me sick. But that was very much, I think, the era that we grew up in was very, like, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. It was very weight loss focused. And I think, you know, it was the era of, like, Nicole Richie and, you know, all of the celebrity weight loss was, like, it was always a huge thing. I always remember, like, my mum saying, you know, oh, we got to have low fat this and this diet and this diet. And, you know, at the time, my brother had really bad ADHD. So mum she didn't want to go down like the medication route basically. And she had put us all on this diet of like no sugar.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, why me?
You're like,
I'm not the one with
ADHD.
I mean, not that bad. I have ADHD. But yeah, it was very much like, you know, it was no sugar, no dairy, no anything to try and like help my older brother out, obviously. And you know, you'd have parties at school and I'd have to be like, I can't have that.
Oh wow.
And I kind of found it a flex. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I can't eat sugar.
Yeah.
Like,
we'll hear a bit of, but
yeah. And then my teachers would be like, oh, like, wow, like that's amazing, good choice, healthy eating. And I think that's what sparks it too. It's that reward system of like, oh my god, you know, I remember, quite literally. And I remember my grandparents and my parents being like, oh, Sarah only has salads when she goes out. Like, yes, Sarah is so good at her healthy eating. She loves fruit. She doesn't eat anything bad. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, I really fucking want the chips. Yeah. But like, I'm genuinely terrified to eat them. Yeah. As a small child.
That's crazy.
That's awful.
And like even like at like little kids parties and stuff, like what food is there? Like very rarely is there a fruit salad on the table. Like there would have been like party pies and chips and lollies. Yeah. And
then I'd have that and I'd feel terrible, like so bad. And then I feel like when, you know, I wouldn't eat all day, finish school, and then I'd be so hungry by the time in the afternoon. Yeah. Obviously. And I'd get home and I'd eat and be like, okay, no, I can't eat anymore until dinner now. Yeah. And it's very much, it started those like disordered eating habits, like binge eating, starving yourself, binge eating, starving yourself. Yeah. So I would say it was always a struggle of mine. Food was always a terror. Is that a thing? Like it was always a terror for me. Yeah. And to be brutally honest, it still is. Yeah. It still is. I've done a lot of work. Obviously things have gotten worse before they've gotten better, but you know, they very easily slip into that mindset. And I feel like for anyone who is listening, who's struggling, who had struggled, there's no healing. You don't just get healed from it. Yeah. And you're like, I love food. Yeah. Like, I love food. Yeah. And I can eat food without feeling bad 99% of the time. Yeah. But it's not linear. No. It's just not. So I wanted to preface that first before I go around being like, I'm healed.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I guess that's like anything too. Like even when you talk about like mental health and stuff, it's like you don't just one day wake up and you're like, oh my god, my anxiety's gone. You might have a day where, or a couple of days, or a week, or a month where you're like, oh, my anxiety isn't that bad, but it's still there. You might have a day in a month's time, a year's time, 3 years time, and be like, oh my gosh, my anxiety.
For no reason.
Yeah, you're like, what is this? I thought I was done with anxiety, and it's like you constantly have to be working at it.
So I did gymnastics for a little bit as a kid. Mum always sort of was like, we have to do a sport. Like no matter what you do, you have to do a sport every term at school. So it could be the same, could be different. Yeah. She just wanted us active, which I totally get. Like I'm not putting any blame on my parents whatsoever. They did the best with the knowledge that they had. Yeah. And then I did gymnastics for a little bit. I had no upper body strength. So I got kicked out of that pretty quickly. Really? Well, I didn't get kicked out, but I was like, I can't do this. I could do everything but bars. Yeah. There's absolutely no way I could pull myself up on bars. Yeah. My little noodles, they say no. So then I got into, I did a little bit of athletics, a little bit of footy. Then I got into dance and cheer. So cheer was probably the worst thing I could have ever done.
I was just going to say, where's all the dance girlies at that all like now girlies have a bit of a rough relationship with food? Raise your hand. You've ever been victimised?
You've ever been victimised by your dance teacher as a child?
Raise your hand.
I don't even think that they meant to do it. It was just that time. It was just that era of things. Yeah. And when I got into cheer, I was a flyer. Which the flyer is the person that gets thrown up in the air. So which enhanced even more the fear of getting too big or gaining weight, being too heavy. I had to stay small so I could stay a flyer. So that was very much just like dun, 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 yeah, all of these things. Yeah. And you know, the real kicker didn't start until I was in high school. And you know, you get your period, you get your hormones, you get all these things. And everyone's like, you're going to gain weight. Like, when you get your period, you gain weight. Like, all this thing. And I was like, nope, not me. Yeah. Not me. Yeah. Nah. Not and happening. I made that my mission. Yeah. And I didn't. And then it wasn't until, probably high school, things started really to go quite downhill for me mentally. That's when, you know, I struggled with my anxiety, my depression. And then this in the background, it just like took the forefront immediately. Again, worsened when I went to boarding school. Yeah. So boarding school, I remember they used to wake us up in the morning. We all had to go to breakfast. We had to sign our name off that we had gone to breakfast. So like there was no way I could skip breakfast. The worst thing I used to do, I literally Googled all of the food that they had and what was the lowest cal option.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I was like, that's all I can have.
And that's a lot of effort every day for breakfast. Like, yeah.
And, you know, when I first got there, I was like, oh, I'll have toast and things like that. And then I was like, oh, no. Really started to freak out. And I think because I didn't have much control of anything else that was going on, this was the only thing I had complete control over was my food. And really, I didn't have complete control because I wasn't even making the food. Yes. Yeah. So I remember I used to get rice bubbles, pour the milk on to, like, make them wet, soggy. Pour the milk off. Oh my god. So I didn't get the calories from the milk and then eat the rice bubbles.
Wow. And rice bubbles are like air.
It's quite literally air. And then, you know, I had a few friends in that school who would say certain things about the way they look or the way I look, and it was very toxic. Very, very toxic for me. I then stopped hanging out with my friends at lunchtime. I started going to the gym during lunchtime. I then go to the gym after school. I do sport. I do the rest of the things. And then, I wouldn't eat morning tea or lunch during the day at school. So I'd have my wet rice bubbles to get me through the day. Delicious. No wonder why I hated my life. Like, what do you mean? And then, wouldn't eat morning tea or lunch. If I did, it'd be like a piece of fruit or something if I was starving. Yeah. Because there was always like cupcakes or cake or just stuff like that. Yeah. And then lunch was always leftovers and it was just gross. It purely because it was disgusting. The food there was terrible. All of my boarders out there, we're on the same page.
Is there any scope, in like boarding to have your own food? Like, do you get to go to the shops and like get
You
snacks
do.
or
It'd
like
be snacks, yeah.
but not like proper meals?
Yeah, not like your main meals.
Right.
So like in the boarding house we had like the little common room, we had like a little fridge and things like that. But my snacks that I used to go and get was Mentos.
Mentos.
Quite literally, I'd eat the Mentos so that I wouldn't get stomach pain.
Oh, yeah.
And then things were going on like that for a long time. I then developed a hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar. So my blood sugar was just low all the time, and I really struggled. I'd go into the gym at lunchtime, I'd be shaking, had to go to the nurse. Also, when I was at boarding school, I was constantly sick. It was like going to daycare again. Like I was just constantly had some chest infection, some throat infection, something going on. Again, purely because my body didn't have any sustenance to fight
Fuel.
anything. So I was sick a lot of the time, which obviously you don't want to eat when you're sick. Then, yeah, things just started going downhill, and then my mum started noticing. She's like, something's going on here. She's like, this isn't right. So she bought me like up and goes and stuff to have at school, because they're quite calorie dense.
Yeah.
But I'd have one up and go and that was it.
Yeah.
And it was just intense. Or it's like, or if I ate the food that was there, or I went out or had a treat, or I remember I used to go and get Subway when we went to the shops. I'd then very much be like, okay, so I had Subway, which means like the next few days
I have to lay low.
Yeah. So then finishing school, things got even more worse. Yeah. That we then lead into the Ashy Bynes, Sarah's Day era of like vegan, paleo, like very restrictive diets. Again, nothing against these people at all. It was just the era that we were in. Yeah. And I took it as Bible. I was like, no, I can only eat raw paleo, like, because I'm healthy, right? Yeah. Because I'm so healthy.
And there was so many people telling you different things. Like, some of them, like, conflicted too. Like, you'd listen to, like, someone and they'd be like, don't eat gluten. And you'd be like, okay. And then someone would be like, no, but, like, don't eat, I don't know, this and that. Don't eat dairy. Don't have this. And you're like, okay, well, what is that for me to eat? Like, what do you mean? And it's like, who do you trust? Because when you're in that vulnerable state and you're, like, following all those people and they're all telling you what they're doing, it's like, yeah, but like, what do I do? Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't really know what information to take from where and what's factual and what's someone's opinion, and it all gets blurred.
Yeah, and I feel like it's definitely still like that now.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
My TikTok is just full of like, you know, these are the foods that are making you fat, and it's like, these are the foods that are doing this. These are going to give you insulin resistance.
And like, are we still doing that in 2022?
Oh my god, guys. And then you've got people who are like, no, you can be balanced and eat everything. And then people are like, no, you're wrong. I can't be balanced and still lose weight. If I want to lose weight, or be balanced and gain muscle. Like, it's not a thing. It's just, it's crazy that it's still happening. So I finished school, and then again, things were getting worse and worse after school because I was listening to all these people, and then you started to get the, oh, you look really small, you look really skinny, you don't look well. And that put more fuel in the fire. Yeah. I was like, hell yeah, I do. Yeah. I was like, hell freaking yeah, that's the goal, baby. Like, what are you talking about? Yeah. Which then made me want to go harder and harder and harder and harder. And it wasn't until I went and saw somebody about it, and, you know, I started to develop all these gut issues. So I had gut ulcers, so stomach ulcers from, like, just not eating. Again, I was under a lot of stress at the time, in a very toxic relationship, toxic environment. Yeah. I was always in hospital. Like, I think it'd be like, hey, G, like, sorry,
I was really concerned for you at one point, because it would be like, oh, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to catch up? And you're like, oh, I'm back in hospital again. And I was like, are you okay?
Yeah. And then, it wasn't until one of the people in the hospital, you know, referred me on to the mental health part, and then we went down that whole rabbit hole there. Episode 2, I spoke about that person who said to me, well, if you're not going to do it, then no one else can do it for you. This is your path. This is it. It's your choice. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, fuck. Yeah. And it was very much like, again, like we were saying in episode 2, no one gives a shit except for me. Now today, I have done a lot of work. A lot of hard work. Again, I'm not perfect every day. Some days are harder than others. Not even days, I feel like, you know, they're quite rare. Ricky was quite literally a saving grace. to me and my relationship with food.
Yeah.
Because if anybody knows Ricky, he loves a KFC, loves a bag of Doritos, like, loves it. Thrives off that kind of food.
Yeah.
And he looks great.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, huh? And yeah, I had convinced myself I was allergic to McDonald's. And like allergic to fast food. I was like, no, if I have that, like, I'll be so sick.
Yeah.
And quite literally convinced myself that I was allergic to all of these types of foods.
Yeah.
I genuinely wasn't. Like, I'm fine. It doesn't make me feel the best, but who feels good after they eat a whole lot of Maccas? Like, no one feels good.
Yeah.
And it was Ricky, like, he'd be like, I thought you were allergic to
It's like downing a Big Mac and you're like, oh, I forgot.
So he reintroduced me into living a balanced lifestyle and eating those types of foods, and that everything is going to be okay. Literally, this thing here says everything works out in the end.
Yeah.
And it was like, everything was going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, he's like, you can eat what you want and train hard, you'll be fine.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And quite literally, it worked.
Yeah.
And which leads into now, and I'm prepping for my very first bodybuilding competition, which sounds crazy. I understand.
That's insane.
It sounds crazy because you're like, wait, don't you still struggle with food, like, and body image and body dysmorphia and things like that?
Yeah.
But what led me into wanting to compete is I've worked so hard and I have come so far, and at this point in time, I'm really ready to prove to myself that I am so much better.
Mm-hmm.
I am so much better. I can do this,
Yeah.
and I can get through it. I can get really fucking lean and really shreddy,
Yeah.
and I can finish and get really muscle mummy again, and still feel good about myself.
Yeah.
Like, I am so determined to just prove to little Sezzy that she's got this.
Yeah.
So,
And that your mindset trumps all.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Love that.
So yeah, that's me.
I love that for you. There was two things that really stuck out for me in your story that, like, I wanted to flag and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
The first one being the importance of what you say to other people.
Yeah.
And the effect that your words have.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, this, like, goes into, like, so many avenues. Like, not even just body image or weight loss or eating. Just in life in general, the power of your words and how they impact other people. Firstly, you never know what someone else is going through.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that, like, you know, people can just say something that's, you know, the first thing that pops into their head, and it could absolutely send someone into a spiral or into a depressed state or whatever, is just, like, crazy. And the fact that, like, still in today's society, I feel like you still hear people say things about people's size, people's weight, how they look, their appearance. And to be fair, most of those people probably don't mean any harm by what they're saying, but it just, like, kind of still blows my mind that, like, we're still doing that. Like,
We're still so fixated on that.
I'm not going to name the exact situation, but in the last couple of months, I heard a conversation between two people, and the lady commented on the size of her thighs. And I think it was just like a throwaway, pass away comment. But, like, immediately there was, like, red flags in my head, and I was like, oh my goodness. Like, it is 2023 and we're still, you know, thinking that we can comment on the size of someone's thighs or their waist or their stomach. And I was like, you have no idea what this person's going through. And that just blows my mind. Like, and even comments that are like, oh, like you said, you look so slim, you look so shredded, whatever it is. And just because someone looks a certain way, like maybe they look slimmer or whatever, you still don't know what's happening behind closed doors. Like, that might not actually be a good thing. For example, like, people that go through grief and don't eat for a long time, and they often do lose a lot of weight. And it's like, oh, then people will say after, oh, you're looking so good, you're so slim.
Like, I'm having the worst time of my life over here.
And, like, the mental load that this person is going through, like, zip it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And even, like, being in prep,
Yeah.
constantly, like, obviously, you know, if you say I'm looking straight, I'm like, thank you so much. But there's a certain way that people say things, and it's like, oh my god, you're looking so skinny.
Yeah.
It's the particular words, I think. So if you call me shreddy, or you call me a muscle mummy, or you call me juicy, stunning.
Thank you so much.
Love you forever. But it's when it's skinny or fat or big or small, those particular words, it's like
the comparison words.
oh
The
yeah,
comparison words. So like you're bigger, you're smaller, you're thinner, and it's like, so you're instantly comparing me to something else.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, obviously I see my members and stuff all the time, not that it's my members saying this, but you know, people that I see and they're like, oh wow, like you look so skinny.
Yeah.
Like, oh, or I've genuinely had people come up to me and be like, you look like shit. Like, are you okay? And I'm like,
who are these people?
Okay.
Send me
I'm like,
their
I'm
number.
just like, you know, been dieting for 15 weeks at the moment, but it's fine. Like,
yeah.
But it's like, comments like that, it's like, obviously they don't know my past.
Yeah.
But, and they don't have to, that's not their responsibility. Like,
No.
my trigger is not anyone else's responsibility.
No.
But it's also like, if you're not going to say anything supportive, don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
Not even if you're going to say something nice, because you might think you're being nice by saying, wow, Georgia, you look like you've lost so much weight.
Yeah.
Like, you might think you're coming across nice, but is it supportive?
Yeah.
That's not the supportive thing to say. Like, gee, you look like you're really glowing at the moment.
Exactly.
Like, has something changed? Like, are you,
that's what I was
what's going on? And then you could then easily open up.
Or like, you look like you're thriving at the moment. Like, you know.
Like, let's go into the era of non-body compliments.
Yeah. I'm here for it.
Non-body compliments.
Yeah.
We'll do a post on that.
Yeah, we'll come back to this.
She's gonna do a post.
That's so important. Yeah, I think we all need to like kind of check ourselves when we're talking to people about the specific words that we're using, because one word choice in a compliment or whatever you think you're giving someone advice could completely derail someone. And I think our words have so much more power than we think that they do, especially in relation to topics like this.
Absolutely.
That was like the first thing that like I was like, yeah, let's circle back to that one.
Yeah.
The second one I wanted to talk about, you were talking about like comparison to other people or being around other people that their relationship with food influence negatively on you. And that really struck a chord with me too, because I immediately thought of in my 20s, I have really struggled accepting and also just being more positive about my own body image. And like, I feel like I'm much better at projecting those thoughts outwards. Like if it's to someone else, I'm really good at being like, you know, yes, like, you know, they look like a fit queen and whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then when it comes to myself, I'm so critical.
Yeah.
And that's been my hardest thing that I've had to work on. There has been certain people in my journey that I've had to remove myself from because it's not even really their relationship with food. I guess in a way it is, but if you're constantly around someone that may be the opposite to you, so the opposite of what you're struggling with, I find that can be really challenging. But also, like, I think it's important to conceptualize what you're saying around other people. Especially, I'm talking about like close friends, like, and most of your close friends would kind of know your situation or, you know, your past, whatever. Because I know, like, as you said, it's no one else's responsibility to know what you're going through. But I just think that can be really hard for people and probably is a really big problem for a lot of people who are currently listening to this. That, like, you know, we've all had that one friend that's like 4 sizes smaller than us and it's like, oh my god,
complaining about it.
I look huge in this dress, and you're like literally having those thoughts about yourself and you're like, are you kidding me? Like, what I would do to look like you. Like, you have those thought patterns, and I'm not saying that they're the best thought patterns, but that is a really complex and toxic environment to be in long term. Do you know what I mean? So that just kind of like red flags in your own story that I was like, that really resonated with me, and I feel like would resonate with a lot of other people, because we've all been there. We've all had that person in our life, whether it's a friend or a partner or whoever that may have their own insecurities, but then it's projected onto you and then changes how you think about that.
Yeah, and I'll call myself out here. I'll call myself on my bullshit. I've done that.
Yeah.
I've been that person.
Yeah.
And because, you know, you're feeling so shitty about yourself already, and then you put something on and you're like, and then you're like, alright, I need some instant gratification. Oh my god, Georgia, I look ginormous today. And then you're like, no babe, you look so good, but in your head
Yeah.
you're like, fuck this bitch.
Yeah.
Like, what is
Yeah.
she talking about?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I got my instant gratification, thank you so much.
Yes.
It's
yeah.
very selfish.
Yeah.
Very, very selfish.
Yeah.
And yes, when I was in that toxic part of my life, I did do that. I was that person, so I apologise. If I was that person in your journey or anybody else's journey who I know, I do apologise.
Just a disclaimer, I wasn't talking about you.
No.
I'm sitting here like, there's this girl that I know. She's sitting right beside me. Just in case you
awful. No, I didn't think so at all, but I just thought it was important for me to call myself out as well.
Yeah.
But
we've all been there.
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
100%. And I feel like, again, like we were saying, it's not linear. Like, even if you are really good with your self-talk or whatever within yourself, you'll still have days where you like put on an outfit, or you'll have a bloated day and you'll be like, everything looks horrible on me. I hate myself in this dress. I have to go out. What am I going to wear? I'm just going to wear a baggy shirt and some, you know, we've all been there. I have to get coffee.
Let us move around.
So I thought it also might be beneficial to share a little bit of my viewpoint on like my story, as in my relationship with food.
Yeah.
Because everybody's just so different. And I really hope that if you're listening to this, you've really resonated with certain parts, because everyone's story is different, but I feel like both of our stories are they have a lot of commonalities for a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? Whether it's like comparison, negative self-talk, or we've all been subjected to other people's comments about what we're eating, what we look like. Are you going to yawn?
No.
I swear. I saw your mouth just kind of, no, Sarah.
Not today. We're good. It's in the morning, guys.
My relationship with food, I liked how you went through the different seasons. I feel like when we were younger, like we were talking about the Biggest Loser season, and like, you know, there was all these things about like Jenny Craig and all these ads on TV that were like, I lost 20 kilos in 2 months or whatever it was. I definitely felt like I was impacted by that era, and I feel like people older than us came from a different era as well, and sometimes like your parents, your grandparents, all of those views. And I feel like a lot of our parents and older people were very set in their views and thoughts on food and diets and all that kind of stuff. I remember when I was younger, Weight Watchers was like a huge thing. I don't know if it was in our household or just like it was talked about a lot or what it was, but from a young age, I'd definitely say primary school, there were these Weight Watchers bars, and I don't even know if they were made for kids, but like...
But I would eat them.
Yeah, I would.
They were good.
I would, and I don't actually know how that happened. And again, not blaming anybody.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, there was just like, I'd have Weight Watchers bars in my lunch. They probably just tasted good, to be fair. Like, I used to love those apple and like cinnamon twists.
Oh, so good. K-Time bars?
Yeah, K-Time bars.
Yeah.
So I think it was just like a version of that, but it was the Weight Watchers version. Anyway, and I remember opening my lunchbox, and I never thought anything of it until one time, someone, and I think it was a boy actually, and
men.
called me out for it and was like, why are you on Weight Watchers? Is it because you're fat? And I was like, I hadn't put two and two together.
It was tasty.
I'm just eating it because it's in my lunch. Do you know what I mean? And it was after that I was like, oh, okay. And like little things like, I've talked about before, like I used to get bullied in primary school, and they used to call me a rabbit because I had like my front two teeth were like slightly longer, and like I hadn't had all my dental work done yet and whatever. Like,
rabbits are cute, so
but I had really chubby cheeks, and I was made aware of my chubbiness very early on, and it kind of just like was ingrained. And then when I like hit puberty and like went to high school, I like shot up, had a massive growth spurt, all of that. Like,
you were like, I'm skinny.
Like, exactly. Then I went through like a stage where my legs were just like skin and bone. Then I think in high school you get into that, like there was like the ab workouts and like the waist shreds.
Like.
Yeah. And then I kind of went down that track a little bit because it was like such a fad, and I think that's when you start getting Instagram too, and you start seeing like other people's bodies, and I was like kind of like, you're open to this whole world, and you're like, whoa, like, oh, I should have a smaller waist. This person's telling me I should have a 6-pack. Like my stomach is flat. Why don't I have abs? Yeah, I went down this path of like doing backyard workouts, which the premise of that, like exercising, isn't the bad part. Yeah. It's the mindset of why you're doing it. That was the negative thing for me. Yeah. And it was like, oh, I need to look skinnier. I need to, you know, have these certain features. It wasn't about being healthy or
moving my body because it makes me feel good or anything like that.
Yeah. Or looking after yourself. Like it had nothing to do with that. It was completely physical. Yeah. And like you said, from that dancing era, I remember I always felt different dancing. Like I was always the super tall one. And like I said, when I was younger, I was a bit chubbier, and I feel like the comments in the dance world were always so impactful on your
like
thinking.
Costume try-ons.
Yeah. And they were like, oh, we're going to have to get a whole new size for you. And you're like, oh my God. Little things like that. Or like you used to get measured for like costumes in front of everyone, and I remember like I'd hear like they'd yell it out, they'd like write it down like she's a 32, and like you're all just standing around listening to everyone's like waist measurements. Like how toxic is that? But anyway, from that era, that definitely like progressed my own relationship with myself and what my body looked like, and my body not looking like all the people I was dancing with. And I would always get shoved out the back because I was tall, but it always was kind of like reinforcing that idea that like you've got to be hidden, and do you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's so sad.
It is really sad, and like it's only once you properly think about it, you're like, oh, that actually was pretty rough, or like, you know what I mean?
It's like conditioning.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's where that came from.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in high school then, I think, again, it was just the age and the sign of the times, but had a really rough relationship with myself, and I was so scared of putting on weight. Yeah. I was like, that was the worst thing that could happen in my life at that point. Like, if I got, you know, bigger thighs or, you know, extra size on my stomach or went up a size. Yeah. Like I remember like you'd go
clothes
shopping.
sizing. Oh my God.
Don't even get me started on Australian clothing sizes. Like
it's awful.
It's really bad. But that is where it kind of progressed, and I was like, I remember one time, I think it was in grade 11, and I like, you know when you come back around to a season, like whether it's like coming out of winter into summer, and you like try your denim shorts on again.
And you're like,
and I was like, these don't fit. Oh no, I've gotten fat. I am a loser. All these like negative thoughts.
You're also a growing teenager, but no, definitely all fat gain.
Yeah.
It's definitely all body fat, Georgia.
And like I was a very active kid as well. Like throughout high school, I played basketball. I danced for a really long time. Like I was always pretty active, and we always like our parents encouraged my sister and I to always have a sport, like, and they were very dedicated to like taking us there after school. So yeah, it wasn't like I was just being a slob and you know, I was like eating all the bad food and whatever. Because I remember grade 12, and I don't know if it's still like this, but like formal season was so toxic for people that were very susceptible to body image comments and that kind of thing. Like my self-esteem went like into the toilet, and I just remember like the dress shopping experience was so toxic for me, and like, you know, people like you're trying on dresses and whatnot, and they'd be like, oh, this is a size 6, this absolutely won't fit you.
It's and like, you're like, oh, thank you so much for pointing that out. I know. Like, I'm fully aware I wouldn't fit a size 6, but
I know, but thank you for mentioning that. Those kind of comments just like. And so it was in grade 12, and I often think about this. I don't know if this would have made a difference, but I struggled with eating, and I would call it starving myself. Yeah. I would try and trick my mum, because like she was here in the mornings when I was getting ready for school. Try and trick her so it looked like I'd used the sink so that I'd had breakfast. Like mum might have been like getting ready, and I'd like like so strategically, like gone and like made it sound like I was banging pans, or like made it sound like I was
washing up or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I would sometimes like put the knife in the honey or something and leave it on the bench, and then Mum would be like, "Oh my gosh, clean up your knife," but it would look like I'd had honey on toast or something for breakfast. So strategic. And I think I started asking her. I made my lunch, but she kind of still had an influence over like what we bought and that kind of thing.
You didn't go and do the groceries or anything like that.
No. But it got to the point where I was like, can I have like full control over my lunch? Like, and Mum's like, oh yes, responsibility, take it.
Get it, girl.
I don't want to do it. But it was more for me to be like, okay, so what strategically can I put in my lunchbox? There was good and bad parts to both of it, but I definitely starved myself. I didn't go to school with breakfast, and I'd have basketball training in the morning, and you were like exerting yourself, and then I would go to school and then have a full day of senior school, which is like
stressful
hectic.
in itself.
I know, and your body is still growing and needs fuel, and I would go through all of that and not have had any fuel for my brain. I would barely drink water at school too. Like, I know that's such a minute thing, but like I never used to drink water, so my body was just so malnourished.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd have basketball training after school or something on, and I wouldn't eat until dinner time.
Yeah.
And like even my lunch at school, like I would occasionally snack on something, whether it was like some grapes or like, but it was never enough to be like a full meal. Like I was so cautious about what I ate because I didn't want to be big and I didn't want to put on weight. And it was just this huge thing at the time.
It consumes your whole life.
It literally does.
It consumes every aspect of your entire life.
Exactly.
It's nuts.
Yes. And that time of like formal is just like, you know, everyone's like, oh, I've got to look really good for my dress. And like, you know, I remember hearing people being like, oh, I'm going for a run every day because like I'm trying to make sure I don't put on weight for formal. Like it was like formal diets.
I feel like our grade was very toxic when it came to that kind of thing. Like just saying.
Yeah.
Our grade was terrible.
Yes. I know. And then again, that comes to like the comparison thing where you would be like, I'm very clearly like, you know, got larger legs than you or whatever, and then you're hearing someone being like, oh, I need to lose weight, and you're like, if they need to lose weight, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Let me just go call up bariatric surgeon real quick because like
yeah, I know. And then I even started like waking up. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. before basketball training sometimes. I'd even wake up at 4:30, go for like a 40-minute run.
Yeah.
Fasted because like at the time that was like how you lose weight, and you know you had to have your lemon water as well and detox the body. And I'm not like throwing shade on any of that, but I'm just like
lemon that does nothing.
It was just a very toxic headspace to be in. And then like coming out of school, my body changed a lot. As you do as a woman, your body is like constantly changing.
Yeah. And
that whole progression has been really hard for me to get my head around. And like even a little bit of disordered thinking about food, like you said, with like, you know, if you have something bad or you have like takeaway, for example, and you're like, okay, so I've had this takeaway all of tomorrow, I can only eat salad.
Yeah.
That's like my rule. And it's like really like it traps you, and then it goes into the next day, and then the next time that you eat, like, you know, oh, I had sugary peanut butter on my bread today, so like tomorrow and the rest of the week I can only have lettuce and cheese on my sandwich. And it's like,
yeah,
what do you mean? So yeah, and then I've just found like in my young adult life that like there's been moments where people that you have been friends with or people that you meet like have impacted on your own relationship with food and your own body image.
Yeah.
And it's taken me a very long time, and I still have my days for sure. Like even this winter I like tried on my pants and I was like, nothing goes over my butt. Like, and I had a good couple of days where I was like, what am I gonna do? I'm in panic mode, like I've put on so much weight. And then it was like, babe, like your glutes have grown so much. Like things that
She's
you're
a
doing.
big booty bee. She's got that big booty.
But like the things that you're doing in the gym, like that's awesome. You're so strong. Why are you sitting here and being like, oh my god, my body's so big, or whatever?
Like that's the whole point.
I know. And like when you do gain muscle, like, you know, even like with shirts, I'm still like this. Like a lot of shirts, there's particular brands that are worse, but like the sleeves are so small, and it's like even if you get a bigger size, this like the arm width, I'm like, whose arm fits into this?
Literally.
And then you have to like really like pull it up your arms, and you're like, oh,
stretch it, like open it up.
And then again, you're like in the change rooms being like, I have the fattest arms.
Yeah.
And it's like, babe.
That's even Ricky though. Like I know I've bought shirts for Ricky.
Yeah.
Like 2XL.
Yeah.
That's a big for him. He's not a big bloke.
Yeah.
Like he's not ginormous or anything.
Yeah.
And his arms don't fit in the shirt.
Yeah.
But the rest of the shirt is like
and you're like,
dress.
this isn't proportionate.
This is not it. Like please make the arms match the actual size, please.
And that is just another thing to remember, is that like clothing especially, I'm sure we've all been there, and you like go to a shop and you try on your normal size and you're like, it's so small, it won't go up. And so then you have to go 2 sizes up and you think like, what the heck? Like I used to have, well, I still have some size 8 stuff in my wardrobe.
Yeah.
I am not a size 8. Like that is not my regular size. I'm very well aware of that. And then I've got some things in there that are a size 18.
Yeah.
That's 10 sizes.
You're like,
sorry? And that just goes to show that every brand is different.
Yeah.
Every piece of clothing is made differently. And like I know we hear this a lot, but seriously, just like don't put your worth on a shop's clothing or their sizing or whatever it is, because it is so messed up and it affects everyone. I promise you, everybody that you come across has been affected by that in some way.
Hands up if you've been personally attacked by clothes sizes in Australia.
Yes.
You.
And I wonder if in other countries it's that bad. Like I wonder if it's just us or that's just a universal thing.
I feel like fast fashion has a huge impact on that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like they just pump out stuff so quick that's just like one size 8 shirt and one that's exactly the same could fit completely different.
Yeah.
I feel like just purely because of fast fashion.
Yeah,
they just pump
that's
stuff
true.
out so fast.
That's very fair.
Yeah, if there's one thing I do want to say in this episode, it is that you are so much more interesting than your body.
100%.
You are so much more than what your body looks like, what it used to look like, what it might look like in the future. There is so much more to you. Like, your body is literally just like a skin puppet.
Yeah.
For your whole life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
You're not friends with me because of what I look like. And I'm not friends with you because of what you look like. Or, you know, you don't have the job that you have, or you don't have the career aspirations or the dreams or the passion inside you because of what you look like.
No.
It is not a thing. It's just, you are so special to be on this planet. Don't let this weird little, like, I could go really woo-woo with this, but like, don't let your literal puppet, we're just sock puppets, really.
Yeah.
Don't let that affect what the hell you want to do, or who you're going to be, or what type of person you want to be, or what type of freaking food you want to eat.
No, life is too short to not eat the food.
Literally.
Like, 100%. Like, if you want a donut, go and eat a donut.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to eat some chocolate, if you love dairy milk chocolate, have dairy milk chocolate. It's okay.
Oh, seriously. And I feel like, you know, I love the focus on health, but balance is health.
Yes.
You can eat chocolate every day and still be balanced and still be healthy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, everyone's definition of healthy is so different. Like, I know when I feel my best. No, it's not in prep.
Yeah.
It's not now.
Yeah.
I feel my best when I'm eating loads of food and I get to train really hard because I feel strong. I have more energy. I'm more focused. I don't have brain fog. Like, that is my version of healthy. And your version of healthy might be when you can, you know, run a certain time, or when you can sit and pump an assignment out, or do you know what I mean? Like, healthy isn't just the way you look.
No.
Healthy is the way you feel. And it's healthy in your body, healthy in your mind, healthy in your soul. And if you're unhealthy in one of those things, being healthy in others is not going to matter. Yeah. So it doesn't matter, say for instance in this prep, it does not matter how shredded I get. If I win my competition, if my mindset's not right, there's no point. I'm wasting my time. So it's really making sure all of those things are very much aligned, so then you can be the best version of you. And if that's having friggin' Tim Tam before bed, have the damn Tim Tam before bed.
Yeah.
Tim Tam's my current craving right now.
That's so good.
Double coat for life.
Wait until after your confidence, just like load me up on the Tim Tams.
Literally.
You will just regret not loving your body, and you'll have like time when you're older that you'll be like, oh, remember when I was like 20 and I was worrying about like my stomach, and it's like, that's a non-issue.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
Go and live your life. Like, and again, this comes back to food. Like, don't sit out on a dinner, or don't sit out on going to a buffet. Like, buffets are freaking good. Like,
yeah.
You know.
Or like, if you're hungry before you're going out for dinner that night, eat.
I know. Like, life is just honestly too short. And I guarantee that, like, when you get older, you'll look back and be like, damn, I'm
a silly goose.
I wish I appreciated my body a little bit more.
100%. And two, I hear it all the time from mums, especially with members in the studio. They're like, oh, like, I just want my pre-baby body back.
Yeah.
And it's like, I get it to an extent, like, you want to feel comfortable in the skin that you're in, but this is the new phase of your life that you've entered, and you've literally grown a human,
carried a human inside
carried
of
it,
you.
birthed it, and now you have to look after it. Like,
that's huge.
Give yourself a damn break. And if your hips are wider than what they used to be, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, you are an incredible human because you've literally created another life form.
It's deeper than what you look like.
Mums out there, sending you love, because I know you all struggle with it. Yeah. Sending you so much love. You are just amazing. And it doesn't matter what you look like, because you have just put your body through the most intense, crazy, beautiful transformation.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a mum, if things have changed in your life and you've gone through things and you're healing from things and your body looks a little bit different compared to what it did beforehand, good on you.
Yeah. That's
so it
important.
should. Because if you looked the same as what you did when you were struggling with XYZ, and now you're not struggling with XYZ and you look different, this is how you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And that's health, babes.
And on that note, like, if you're in a really stressful event, like, I know this was me, like, last year, my body was, like, so inflamed and just holding on to everything because I was in fight or flight mode 24/7, and my body did look a lot different. I was, like, you know, whatever, I was holding on to a lot more water, and there's so many reasons because you're in, like, this stressed out state, and then when you're not in that stressed out state, you're like, oh, okay,
I am a weapon.
Yeah, and your body is going to change through the seasons, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, love yourself. Life is just too short to not love the body you're in.
Absolutely.
And even if you are currently in a phase of, you know, I am trying to get stronger, I'm trying to get healthier, whatever, be excited to get there, but don't forget about where you are now. All the amazing things that your body does for you, like, it, like, allows you to live every day.
100%.
Like, I'm still mind blown all of the things that the body does for you, like, every single day.
Your heart is just pumping. Like
what?
It's just crazy to think about. Like, my heart is literally just beating right now to keep me alive. My lungs are breathing just to keep me alive, and I don't even have to think about it.
You don't think about it.
And my brain is sending all these signals. Like, that is incredible. And if you have full health, you should be so damn grateful.
Yeah.
Because there's people that don't have that.
Yeah.
Who wish they had that.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether you carry an extra bit of body fat or an extra bit of muscle, or you don't carry anything in your skin and bone, you're still beautiful and your body still works for you.
Yeah. And you got up today. Your body allowed you to wake up today. Like, how special is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. And so I want to talk a little bit on comparison there. There's, you know, don't compare your chapter 1 to someone's chapter 220.
Yeah.
And I feel like personally for me, that's something I've struggled a lot with this prep, because I'm looking at my coach, for example.
Yeah.
She is an incredible athlete.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at her and I'm like, oh, well, how come I don't look like her?
Yeah.
And comparison is the thief of joy. Yes. So do not dare compare yourself to anyone, anything.
You don't have the same bone structure. You don't have the same genetics. Like, there's so many variables between person to person.
Yeah.
And that's also something to remember when you're online. I feel like that is a very hard thing. You're looking through influencers or models and being like, oh, her waist is so small, or whatever.
She's so jacked.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you're looking at someone's account and they make you feel triggered, unfollow. You have the power to unfollow.
It's your choice.
Like, you don't have to deal with that, and that's your
100%.
responsibility.
Yeah.
So don't go whinging about that particular person, because you have the power to not be involved in that energy.
Exactly.
If that's the energy you don't want to be involved in.
Yes.
If you find things motivating, like I follow people because I find them really motivating.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, absolutely. But then
Yeah.
there is some people where I'm like, get triggered by it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, I don't associate with that energy.
You create your own space online.
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
Even if they're like friends, like,
Mhm.
you know, if you know someone, or like, you know, a sister-in-law or someone, and their online accounts or their online space is triggering you or whatever,
Yeah.
there's like, you can mute people's stories and posts now. Like, there's so many things that you can do to create a healthier space online.
Yeah.
And that definitely does impact heavily, like the online space does massively impact on this topic that we've just spoken about today. So that was a big topic, and
Yeah.
I'm so excited for you to hear this conversation. And I'm so grateful to have had Sarah here to talk about this. I feel like you're just, as I said in the second episode, you're just my go-to person, because like, you always just like bring the good energy, the good vibes. You talk really well, like your story, like,
Stop, love you.
I'm a Sarah Robson fangirl at the
I'm a
moment.
Sarah.
And
My
you
biggest
will be
fan.
too. But no, massive thank you for recording this episode with me and coming on to share your journey and being vulnerable. It's not an easy thing to do. So I really appreciate you being here and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
That's
Anytime.
okay.
Yeah, feel free to reach out, guys. Like, if you have any questions or you want to talk about something,
Yeah.
my DMs, G's DMs,
Yeah.
the Intuition Co's DMs are always open. So
Yes.
if you really resonated, you're like, hey, I need some support in this particular area, either one, that works. Please reach out. I'm always
100%.
happy to respond.
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. And I love that too. Like, even on my public Instagram, like, some people like message me sometimes and be like, oh, like, I need help with this. And I love that that's
Yeah.
like the space that, you know, you've created online. Like, if people are coming to you to talk about stuff, I don't know, I find like that's like almost a version of success. You're like, they feel comfortable enough to like
Reach
talk
out
to
to
me. And
me.
you just feel like online besties. I love
Yeah,
it.
absolutely.
But yes, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, and I really hope that it resonated with you. You learnt something and you are feeling somewhat inspired even after listening to this episode. And I'm going to leave this episode the way that I always do. You are appreciated, you are capable, and you are loved. Bye for now.